In the constantly changing world of fundability, the big question is this: how are entrepreneurs and real estate investors like us, ones who want to grow our businesses and who are tired of paying for really expensive alternative lending, how do we tap into the most inexpensive money available and do it without the hassle of typical borrowing? That is the question, and this podcast will give you the answers. Welcome to the Get Fundable podcast with your host, Merrill Chandler.
Welcome back, everybody. Merrill Chandler here, your host of the Get Fundable podcast and the Get Fundable universe. And I got a treat today. Well, I have got one of my favorite clients and one of the most successful men that I know personally, and he is going to be sharing with us some of the keys to entrepreneurial achievement, and it's going to blow your mind because this is cool stuff. So when we come back, I'll be joined by William Lam, who is going to share with us both his relationship with funding, but what he does in the world and how he makes a difference and how he leverages all this great juju for the good of his community and the world. So when we come back, more with William Lam. All right, everybody, welcome back. Merrill Chandler here. I want to introduce you. If you don't already know him by name, you're going to know him soon by reputation. William Lam is my guest in our Get Fundable podcast today. And a little bit about him, and he's going to fill in the blanks in his own words. But I am telling you, there is so much that we're going to be talking about today. First of all, William specializes in mental performance training, right? He helps business owners, investors, and other high performers ascend to the next level by programming, like pre-programming their mind, changing their micro behaviors. Sounds familiar in the Get Fundable universe, right? Changing one's behaviors and changing unconscious thinking patterns. So welcome, William. I am so honored to have you here with me on a number of levels, right? What you're offering the world, and you've slayed it as a Get Fundable client. So tell us a little bit more, go into a more depth of what you do out there and how you are changing lives but through this. Go. I can't even fill in the word.
Hey, I'm humbled by this this interview. And first off, I want to thank you and your team for helping me in this journey, because with what I've been able to do with you guys, it's definitely free up my mind, my mental real estate, to be able to focus on what I do. And so that's been tremendously helpful. So I'm very grateful for that. So first off, thank you. And I was saying, I don't know if we have enough time for me to say the good things that, I've experienced with you guys. But I'll introduce myself quickly. So as you guys know, my name is William Lam, and my specialty is that we work with individuals that are already doing decently well, if not really well, and taking them to a whole new level. And oftentimes what happens is our mind, sometimes we can get our minds to do what we want, and sometimes we seem to struggle, right? Sometimes it'll perform really well, and sometimes it actually underperforms or even self-sabotage. And that unpredictability or inconsistency is not only hated by entrepreneurs and business owners, and no one likes it. So what we do is to create that actual predictability by automation. Because a lot of people out there, they'll spend a lot of money, thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, if not millions, building their business, investing in a business, very important, right? And they spend money in training, they spend money on automating the business, all very important. At the same time, what we have found with the business owners that we have worked with, as well as Olympic athletes and, pro football, a number of different high performers, what we have found is that your business will only be as unlocked as your mind is. It will not live up to its full potential until your mind begins to get there, right? So that's what we specialize in. We help people program away the barriers and the resistance within the mind so that they can completely unleash who they really are.
That is that is fascinating. And but we kind of, when we first met, it was under the guise of fundability, right, et
Yeah.
cetera. But the more we talked, it was like, hold it, this sounds like automatic underwriting for the mind, right? We want to take it out of the manual. Okay, I'm going to will my way. I'm going to will my way to the top of the hill. I'm going to manually do all of this stuff. And like you said, our performance goes up and down, up and down. It's not predictable. Well, hello. FICO is all about predictive analytics. What have they done? They've taken out all that manual stuff and got it so they can trust, I mean, to the tune of the higher fundings, they trust the automatic underwriting process. What you're telling me is that we as business owners, entrepreneurs, my listeners, can trust that their performance in their business and their lives and their families is also more predictable if they automate the process, right? I'm hearing this right?
Exactly.
Right?
It's a perfect metaphor.
But isn't that hilarious? I help borrowers change their behaviors so that they can fit underwriting guidelines, and you change behaviors so that they can change the results in their family, their relationships, their businesses, et cetera. And so I'm sitting here going, we have the exact same mission. We have the exact same mission. Mine more in the financial realm, even though you help with finances or help them leverage better with mind and their personal power, right? So I just thought that was crazy. Well, tell us about your so that everybody's on kind of an even footing here. Tell us about your journey in what with Get Fundable, your experience in the boot camp, the clients, just kind of how you got here on the to in my tribe, and then I want to explore your effect in the world in a minute.
Let's do it. Yes. It was a very delightful experience. You know, I remember meeting, I was in a meeting one evening, and it's a very casual, networking type of meeting. And I found myself meeting Merrill, and Merrill was invited into the circle, and I could instantly tell he was just, I mean, I don't think I can say any other word but badass, right? Like he showed up and I was like, this is the man. And I didn't know anything about Merrill. And Merrill didn't waste any seconds. He dove right into what really mattered in our conversation. And he began to share some of the things he did. And I'm not kidding you, within seconds, I was like, okay, I need Merrill in my life. And at that point, I wasn't exactly sure how I would be able to, really synergize with Merrill. I wasn't sure if I want to instantly, become one of the clients, or like how I would, or if I could help him on other things, because I have some software guys that can, automate certain things. And so I contemplated and I played with different options. And then eventually I was like, you know what? I just need to hire their team, because I mean, if I want to be able to truly focus on what I do best, I need someone like Merrill on my team to help me, right? And his team on my side to help me create this perfect profile. And I know that it might be hard to say that there is something perfect, but I feel like because of what his team and what he's done for me and my personal profile, as well as what they have, I mean, from small things to big things, what they have taught me have been amazing. And then the next thing, I actually need to backtrack a little bit. I went to their boot camp, but I already talked to Merrill on the phone. I asked Merrill, hey, how do I work with you? How can I work with you? How can I have your time? And he gave me a few options, and I immediately knew I need to go all in, right? So, and for those of you who may be listening and pondering, should I go all in right now? Well, I think between the time that you're thinking about it, that you started thinking about it, to the time you finish thinking about it, like Merrill and his team will already have done wonders for you. So get started as quickly as possible. That was my experience. I got started, and immediately their team taught me things that I'm like, oh my gosh, I could have spent another 500 years on this earth. And if I had never, talked to Merrill, I may have never figured this out. And I would have been at a disadvantage in my business life. And so as much as I knew how to automate my mind and other behaviors and a number of other things, and we coach guys that do really well, but even then, most people don't know what Merrill and his team knows. And I'm talking about people doing 7, 8, 9, even 10 digits, not knowing what Merrill knows. So to me, not only was it impressive as I started working with them, now that I can speak from experience, I was like, oh, wow, my faith and my trust in their team, it's been validated.
That's awesome.
I have a lot more to say, but
yeah.
I'll start there.
So can you give an example? Here's what I know, and your business is your business. I don't want to out you, but one of the transactions you were working on was a high dollar amount for where your team literally step by step was able to help take the measures and the introductions, the people and other teams, even outside of us, and create an amazing win. I don't know if you care to share about it, but give me an example. Give me an example of just a phenomenal win that. And I completely forgot to say. By the way, part of the reason, besides his genius, part of the reason why William is with us today is he is my 1,000th, no joke, literally tick the clock, my 1,000th client funded. And I've told you guys, every business should have one number that drives the business. And it's not your sales number. It's not your gross revenue. Every business should have a number that takes into account all the efforts of every number in the business. Mine is clients funded, because if I get a bunch of clients and they don't get funding, I'm not in my integrity. If somebody gets, if we get tons of funding, but we don't get very many clients, then we may not survive long as a business. But my number is clients funded, and William is the 1,000th client funded, and so proud that that was our cause to get here. So I applaud. Well, I applaud our team, but I applaud you, because this interview, this podcast happens to like tick off so many cool boxes, right? So can you share with us what brought you to being that to 1,000th client funded? Oh
my gosh. Okay, so
the challenges of it, and then the win of it, right?
Totally. Day one, I remember, so I'll tell you guys a funny story. Last year, and I've had like a perfect payment history until last year, 2019, end of the year, I forgot to pay a $15 payment. And I thought I had paid it, but the statement come out like a day after. Anyway, like long story short, I thought I paid off the card, so I didn't even look at it. 30 days later, they send me, I got a notice on my FICO app. And I was like, what's going on? They didn't even call me, like nothing happened. And I was like, what? I thought I paid it off. And that was a moment. It was actually very perfect, because I had just thought about, I need to work with Merrill and his team. And that popped up. I was like, oh man, all the more reason, because I don't even know what I'm doing. Like I missed $15, right? And I have like $200,000 worth of credit, yet I missed $15 and they dropped my score so much. I'm like, Merrill, please save me. Like how do I even do this? And so they walked me through and gave me great confidence, right? I mean, day one, immediately they dove in and went to work. And then very quickly, as we continue, and I found that one of the most important things was really to get my credit, like all of the small things from when I pay my bills, when I pay them down to zero, to also making sure that I'm reporting the right names and all the micro things, right? The microscopic things that make big differences. And his team helped me through every single step. I mean, that was tremendously helpful, because some of these things make sense. Yeah, I mean, like if you guys go to boot camp, it makes sense, but it's all the more easier when you have a team of expert helping you do it, right? So as I did that, the process was smooth, and it wasn't like teaching a child how to fly, right? It was easy. And then as we kept going, they identified, oh, if you do this and do this, for example, your mortgage you'll have an easy time getting car loans. And so they have been tweaking my personal side of things and optimizing everything. And look, I could get really specific, but there were like 100 things, 1,000 things.
Right.
And then now we're on to the next chapter and creating. I mean, they got me qualified on the best, mortgage refinance through their introduction. They got me, got the profile. They helped me fine tune it, so I was able to once again qualify for the cars I needed for my business. And then my wife just got ourselves an RV with her credit, first time application. It was really effortless. And so, and I can't say it's one thing or another. It was all of those things that piled up and added together that made the big difference. So, and I'm just excited because I think we're about to hit another next level success with Get Funded, with you guys. So.
Yeah, we the next level is moving from personal, because we dialed in the mortgage, auto loan, we've got everything tight there. So now we're going to leverage that. And that's what everybody who binges my podcast, thanks bingers, everybody who binges the podcast know that it really is moving like sighting in a gun, right? The scatter group, you want to tighten up until we're on the bullseye, where we're fundable on the bullseye on the personal. Now it's time to start building those banking relationships and creating those credit lines, business loans, commercial loans, et cetera, right?
Yeah. So excited.
Yeah, that's our next play. I'm thrilled. So tell me, give me an idea then what your plans are, or how you have been able to reduce your psychic drag. Now that's my term, not yours, but how do you reduce psychic drag now that you've got all of these your personal profile, firing on all cylinders, and you're ready to leverage, et cetera? What's happening using your language and your high performance optimization? How does that help you in becoming a better entrepreneur, better business owner, better man, better husband, better family man?
Yes, absolutely. One of the biggest challenges that I think a lot of business owners experience is cash flow, right? And but also energy flow, really, in a even bigger picture. So that energy flow can come in so many ways. Like, for example, our personal energy. When we get up in the morning, are we excited and motivated, right? And also, when we get to the business, let's say we're excited, passionate, we're motivated to do work, is the cash flow flowing? And if the cash flow may be slower or faster, right? Because, all of us who experienced 2020 may feel one way or another, regardless. If we have business credit that's reliable because we have an awesome personal profile, then really it's a lot less stress off the business owner's mind, right? It's a lot easier to think, oh, if I need to tap into my credit, I could. If I need to go and make this purchase, this investment in my business so that I can grow exponentially, I could, instead of being totally confused and unaware of what to do, right? That was where I was. I was good at doing what I did, and we were doing fine business-wise. At the same time, yes, there were months I spent a lot of money in building the training, hiring people, or paying for equipment or different things. And I'm like, oh man, what am I going to do if I needed a little bit more money to invest? And so I would say, in Merrill's term, the psychic drag has been dramatically reduced by knowing and having the confidence that my business, regardless of what happens, have this sustainable credit, right, that supports it.
Yeah. Brilliant. So leveraging that, then tell me give me a 3 or 4 or 5, whatever will help our listeners understand what are some things that, like, how do we optimize our minds? What are the principles? If somebody says, holy hell, I need to talk to William, because I want to, just like I'm optimizing my fundability, I want to optimize my brain, my behavior, optimize brains and behaviors. It's just like, because I'm already in the habit of it. What would somebody, how do you kind of A to Z, how would you help somebody, right? Just the ice caps, because of course this is a very deep question, but what are the main tenets of that somebody would need to know that this is that behavior optimization and high performance training would be useful to them and their business? Because I can get them money, but what are they going to do? How they implement it? William, I tell them all the time, I don't know if I can help you get the money, but I don't know if I'm putting a gun in the hand of a 2-year-old, right? How do you make sure that they know how to shoot that gun?
Yes, that's a fantastic question. I like the analogy. So a lot of what we do is identifying first where we are and where we want to be, right? Just like, when it comes to get funded, we need to know where our profile is and where we want to be and the goals. And after we understand where our student or client, nowadays we do a lot of trainings. So people from all walks of life are actually able to gain access to our training, whereas it used to be a lot more exclusive. And even now, we still actually don't advertise, not at this point. We have kept it very much referral because our, just the number of clients that have come to us versus, the amount of coaches and people that we have, we feel comfortable, having. Anyway, long story short, first we identify where we are and where we want to be. Second, we identify, we basically create a profile of the individual's mental map. We understand where they are right now, right? And that map is a reference of where they are in life. Now, that map may contain beliefs, things that they believe about themselves, right? For example, a business owner may come to us and say, and this is obviously under a very honest, open conversation type of situation.
Right.
We would ask them, how much do you really feel that you deserve to make a year? And the first numbers that come to mind, or the numbers that really stick, they may say, oh, it's $500,000 a year. Well, then if their goal is $1 million, they will hit what they believe they deserve, no matter how smart, how strategic, how hard they work. And for a lot of people, maybe they're doing 100,000, 80,000, but they want to hit 400,000. Same thing, right? Or we've worked with people that are doing, 7, 8, 9 figures, and they're like, I want to get into the 10 plus numbers. Well, same thing. Where do you believe you deserve? So in that mental map, there's the beliefs and what's important to them, right? Values, decisions they've made in the past. When I was a kid, I'll say this briefly. I remember my parents bought a TV, and I'm like, Mom, we must be well off. We have a brand new huge TV, 21 inch, right? Back then it was big.
Gargantuan, right?
Yeah. And I'm like, we must be well off. Can I tell all my friends? She's like, don't you dare. Because if you tell your friends or anyone, if you tell people you're wealthy, people will take your money away. Now, clearly that's a terrible and limiting belief. But at that point, she was in her 20s. I was a little kid. I didn't know what to believe. I just believed her. She was my mother, right? And so I asked her the other day if she believed that. She'd laugh. She's like, what are you talking about? Why would I ever say that to you, right? But for my whole life, I took that belief into my unconscious and I actualized it. So for a good period of my life, until I discovered it, I literally made money, spend it, or spend it before I had money, which is a terrible behavior for building credit, right?
You're right.
And I did that over and over and over well into my 20s, until one day I was actually in training in these trainings that we teach. And at that point I was being trained. My wife was being trained at the same time with me. She's like, hey babe, I noticed you spend a lot of money before you collect or as soon as you collect. When did you decide that?
Oh, snap.
At that moment, I was about to say, I don't know. I was almost feeling a little resistant. And I was like, I'm going to make sure I'm on Do Not Disturb. I was feeling resistance to answer her. And then instantly the memory flashed before my eyes. It was that when I was 5, my mother told me that. And I was like, oh man, of course, right? I got rid of it. Ever since, it was easy for me to accumulate wealth. So we find that map of where they are, and then we get rid of anything that's limiting. And then we install resources, because there are no unresourceful people, only unresourceful states. So we teach them how to program emotional states that are sequential. So instead of feeling, bored and then go do nothing, right? And then they feel frustrated and and then they feel guilty about not doing anything. We actually program, for example, as soon as they get bored, they get excited, they get motivated, and then they go get stuff done. And then they feel rewarded, they feel fulfilled. So the emotions can all be programmed sequentially. So it's almost like you can automatically feel whatever emotion you want. And we program a number of different paths. So you either feel good or you feel even better. And then we observe the behavioral change, and then we calibrate based on that. And then finally, we solidify the programming and the individuals off to the races more.
Yeah, that's so fascinating because, like I said earlier, it's just, I like to think that most of us listening, all of you out there in my tribe, we talk about living a deliberate life, right? A deliberate life, not a reactive life where we have to. And everything you're talking about is, I just celebrated my 60th birthday. I've been around the sun a few times, and thank you. And
35, 40, Merrill.
Well, thank you. It's the glasses. No, but some of us had to do it the hard way, right? Here's the thing: if working with this kind of, call it technology, call it enlightenment, call it insight, right? But I've paid some very dear prices that all my tribe knows, for having to stumble my way through deliberate living, right? And yet here you are, in my view, a very astute youngster. That's my word, not his, by the way. But having all of these resources to be able to come to bear, so that you're in your 20s, in your 30s, in your 40s. You're not waiting until you are 40, 50, and 60 to learn it the hard way, right? It's like going to school to climb the face of El Capitan, and just 2 years ago, somebody free climbed the entire damn thing without a rope, right? So now we're climbing 2,000 foot cliffs without a rope because it was there. How do you talk to me about leverage, using the order of this process? How does someone leverage that into three-dimensional hardcore business results? Like maybe even some examples about clients or people who've done this model, right? How did that translate into an improved mind, body, and spirit that they're and business in the world?
Yes, I'll give a quick disclaimer first. Then, obviously, this is not financial advice or legal advice of any sort. And for what I'm about to share, it's a quick, easy to implement, everyone can do it version. Of course, we have a full-blown step-by-step in detail in our training, and we could talk about that later. I think that one of the easiest ways to put it is think of what you want in life, and what you need, and what you'll settle for. A lot of times, people know what they want, at least briefly, or in small quantities. But
I'm making note, everybody. I'm sitting here. I'm the student now.
It's an honor, Merrill. So, and a lot of people will go for not what they want, but what they need. Because think about what our parents told us, right? All of us that have gone through the last, our parents have gone through the last 100 years or however many years. There are wars throughout the world. There are different things that happen.
Depressions,
people go for what
recessions.
they need. Yes, and therefore they taught their kids, right? And they taught their kids and their kids. So what we have learned is a lot of people will go for what they need even when they are fully aware of what they want. And some people are even too scared to think about what they want. And then there's even a good chunk of the population that won't even go for what they need. They'll go for what they'll settle for.
What they got it.
Now, if we were to look at it this simply, right, putting things into three categories, what we'll find is if we say what we want and people say there's nothing wrong for not getting what you want, just getting what you need. The problem is if you tell your mind, which is magnificent, it's like a machine from the future. It could do anything. We tell our mind this is what we want, and then this is what we're actually going to go for, which is what we need. Your mind will be trained to underperform.
Got it.
Naturally, right? And when the mind naturally is trained to underperform, next time someone says, I want 100 grand, they get 50 because their mind knows exactly how much
That's all I need. That's all I need.
Yeah. And then there's the group that's like, I'm just going to go for it, settling for what I can have, what I can get, right? I'll take what I can get.
Right.
Well, then they may only get 10K and they wonder why someone else who's no smarter than them, right? Who doesn't even work as hard as they do, end up making 5 times more or 10 times more money. It's the misunderstanding that actually drives sometimes greed and jealousy, right? But when we begin to understand, it's training. It's actually simple training. If you identify what you want in your life, in your business, in your relationships, and your, get funding, goals, and then you actually, instead of pushing for what you just need, right? For example, like, you could settle for just going to the boot camp, but instead, you really need to work with Merrill's team. And even better, like what you really want is to have them do, the special service where they do it for you, right?
Right.
Then you go for it, right? You go all the way. That's where I recommend, like, you train your mind to go for what you want. This is just an example. You could go to a restaurant, right? For $2 more, you can get the meal you want, but you're like, no, I'll save $2 here and there. I'll save 20. But here's the thing. What you didn't know is if you train your mind to go for what it wants, you are also building what you believe you deserve. And we make how much we believe we deserve. So you should spend every opportunity persuading yourself that you deserve massively awesome abundance, right? Whatever you call it.
Right.
Great wealth. So that's a really simple tool. You can actually write down lists of what you want and what you need and what you'll settle for, and observe yourself how often you go for what you need and how often you go for what you want. And then reinforcing that pattern of going for what you want over time will naturally cause your mind to reduce resistance internally, so that your mind no longer resists, because the mind also operates on the path of least resistance. If it knows that last time you just went for something that was easier, next time is going to push you against your limitation and say, hey, last time you settled, why are we going for more this time? So instead of building that internal inertia over time by choosing what you need instead of what you want, you built internal motivation. That's automation, step one. So obviously I'm giving you a more like simplistic explanation, but this is a really simple concept. If I may, I'll share one more that is very helpful. Let's say for one reason or another, the audience chose to work with Merrill, or maybe even work with me, or do whatever you do, and you became massively successful. And because of this conversation, you unlocked something. That's great. That would be awesome. And a year or 2 or 3 years later, you call Merrill and you're like, let's celebrate. That was an incredible time that I get to hear you guys talk and change my life. And I'm at a whole new different place. I've hired Merrill. You and I have even worked together, and now I'm just doing so well in every area of my life. I want to celebrate. Therefore, I'm going to pick you guys up. And Merrill and I are like, yeah, okay, of course. Where are we going? And you're like, we got a jet. We've chartered a jet. We're going to pick you up in a limo. We're going to go to New York City. And I'm like, yeah, let's do it.
I'm all in.
Right. And so we're on the plane. And of course, me being me, I'm going to ask some weird questions. I'm like, hey, I know we've gotten to know each other by this point, but I'm going to ask you a weird question. I said, where are we going for food? And then you're like, well, it's this place I booked out in Midtown, New York. It's really good. Michelin star. I'm like, okay, are we going to the place? Like, and then you're like, you show me on your phone on Google Map, and I'm like, are we going to the place on the map, or are we going to the place on the map? Now you may say, the same question sounds the same linguistically. What's the difference? Well, here's the difference. The map, the Google Map, the phone does not contain a restaurant. The place on the restaurant, there's no restaurant there, but there's a reference, right? The map references a restaurant in the physical 3-dimensional world.
3D world, yes.
The problem with a lot of people is they say the economy's bad, or business is not going well, or this is happening in media, or clients are saying no. Those things, yes, it may seem real in the 3-dimensional world, but they are a projection of your map.
Got it.
So when you learn how to change your map, your physical reality will change. You'll change your world when you change your map. So one of the tools to changing the map is to design what you want. Designing precisely what you want. So most of the population, as we just talked about, right? We talk about the 3 things. We focus on we have what we want, and we have what we need, and what we will settle for. Much of the population really only in their map have what they need and what they will settle for. What they want is not really there. So the mind is really not that motivated, because if you're going for what you don't even feel good about, then your mind has no reason to feel good about what you're doing, therefore not motivated. If you want natural automated motivation, you need to design what drives you, really makes you excited. Wakes up and you're like, oh my gosh. Even if you wake up late, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited. What you want. I would recommend writing 100 things and 100 experiences down that you absolutely want. That if you have those things, you would be like, even if you have like 2 of those things, you'd be like, oh my gosh, my life is very fulfilling, right? And those 100 things and 100 experiences. Now here's the trick. 80 to 90% of our thoughts, based on a lot of statistics, are negative, unfortunately, right? Of course, I'm speaking for the general population, maybe not you guys, right? Maybe not those listeners who are following Merrill. What you'll find is, that being said, if we don't choose to focus on what we want, and the mind will attract what we play on the stage of our mind, right? Because what we play on the stage of our mind is a preview of coming attraction. So if we don't play what we want, we play what we worry about, what we will settle for, what we don't want, that's what it will play out. And you're like, I knew it, my life sucks, right? That's not the attitude. But if you begin to design what you want, 100 things, 100 experiences, you're forcing your mind to really focus on what you want all the time. In fact, how many of us can say more than 5 things, 10 things, 20 things right now off the bat, right? What you want and experiences. Many actually may not. Many people will struggle. And I'm going to ask you to do 200, right? And once you finish it, your mind will literally begin to change. This is naturally and manually too, forcing your mind to focus on what you want. And then over time, right, as you finish the list of 200, hey, we can talk again. You can follow me. We have on Facebook something called TransLibrarycom. It's a group. Yeah, it's a private group. So we'll have to approve you as you request. My team member will approve you if you mention that, we met here. Because we do want to increase the size of the group, but we're also very careful about who we let in.
Sure.
So
I saw what you did there, by the way. You said, hey, 100 experiences, 100 experiences, 100, 200 experiences, 200 experiences. I was like, he just doubled my game without even me noticing, right? So, well played, sir. Well played.
100 things, right? And then 100 experiences. And this is good. I'm glad you brought this up.
That's what it is. 100 things and 200 experiences. Gotcha.
100 things and 100 experiences, so 200 items total.
Oh, there we go. Hey, everybody, all listeners, everybody, if you're running right now, if you're at the gym, if you are riding in your car, this is mad important, because that exercise alone, whether or not you do anything else, that I totally see that exercise alone, William, is going to blow them up their brain up like a balloon, because you can't not unsee that list, right? You can't not unsee that list. Your balloon brain, guys, is now bigger regardless. So Merrill Chandler endorses this activity. For Tribe, make this happen. And we'll get back to your reference of where they can apply to join your group or whatever. But I'm telling you, I want to see on Funding Hackers, Get Fundable, Insider, all those trade lines. I want to know that you guys did it. I want you guys to register. I'm at 100. I'm at my 200. That's going to be a huge thing, because I want my balloon to be that big, my balloon brain. So, well played, William. So it's TransLibrary.
I'll spell it TRANCE.
Trans.
Yeah. Library.com.
Library.com. But does that URL take you to the Facebook page, or do you go straight to the Facebook page?
Pull up the Facebook
page.
Because here's the thing, since we do most of our business through referrals, my website is really where we host the content. It doesn't really even tell you what we do, because the people that are on our website already know.
Got it.
It's a pretty rare scenario, because I don't think a lot of people experience that. Especially in 2020, but the way we've run our business has generated a lot of wonderful people, has really attracted a lot of good people. So I'm going to share in the chat so that you could just copy and paste. It's facebook.com/groups/TransLibrary.
Awesome.
Yeah,
awesome.
And you can share that. And the nice thing is, in our group, we sometimes do interviews and interview our students and talk about different things and strategies and tools. We're about to launch a 21-day focus on what you want challenge. And that will also solidify your ability to focus on what you want. Because think about this. 2020 was really a year where people's concerns surfaced, right? So many of the people that don't focus on what they want came out of the woodworks. It was crazy.
Right.
And a lot of issues happen because people don't focus on what they want. What we play on the stage of our mind is a preview of coming attraction. So if we can collectively get more people to focus on what they want, 100 things, 100 experiences, we literally are changing society as a whole.
Hey, is it okay? And feel free to slap me after. Or is it okay if I include that in my challenge to my people, to expand their balloon and then send them to you?
Oh, totally. Yeah. Absolutely. I'll get the link and everything.
Because this is phenomenal. We did a. You'll appreciate this. Towards the last 21 days of the year, I wanted to have a New Year's revolution instead of a New Year's resolution, right? So all the way up that we did 21 days from December 11th through December 31st, we had a challenge, and I was online in our tribe, pushing everybody to take on new particular challenges through this thing, and so to hear you say that this is one of the things that you're doing, those are I'm on it. I'll have this done before the end of the weekend. Thank you, sir. That's awesome.
My pleasure. Oh, and tell me what happens, because I've heard the craziest stories. Things just appear, and it's like living the life of miracles every day, right? If you begin to focus. So
you may know the term. Because Brad, my partner, says the term. There's a technical term for it. I call it the red car phenomenon. The second you mention a red car, people start seeing red cars, right? Do you know? I don't know what there's a term for it.
The reticular activation system.
That's the one. Reticular activation system. Everybody, listen to him. Reticular activation system. So this right here, the reason why you're talking about magic is because with the second I say red car, I'm going to start noticing red cars. So if I say trip to Hawaii this year, then as one of my experiences, all of a sudden I'm going to start noticing specials and great discounts. We have to stay here 2 weeks because you have to quarantine in Hawaii for 2 weeks. That's so sad. I'm going to have to stay in Hawaii for 2 weeks. but I'm going to start shaping my mind because I'm blowing up my balloon brain. Brilliant, sir. Brilliant.
Appreciate it. Hey, this will be fun. I keep me in the loop. Love to hear more about what happens.
Yeah, no, straight up. So, all right, tribe, make sure that you guys take it on, and then you don't have to say what it is, but just say, done with my 100 things, done with my 100 experiences, and we'll put this as part of our next challenge as well, because I think that is that reticular activation is red car phenomenon. So tell us how people could get a hold of you if they're like okay, like you and I did to each other, like I got to have this person in my life, right? I got to have this man in my life. So how do they get to know you, or where can they get some of your content that lets them feel good about working with you, or be able to walk their path with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So our practice and our training system is very similar to what Merrill does. And we have a do it yourself, we have a do it with you, and then we have a do it for you. Yeah. And the way we approach, I typically recommend people at least start somewhere, right? Because some people are like, oh, I don't know which one to start with. The thing is, there's also a thing about deciding within a certain period of time. Yeah. And if you were to ask Merrill how quickly I decided to jump in as soon as we talked, I was like, all right, let's do it, right?
We're sitting in a circle, and I'm kind of going off on fundability optimization and funding your Z, right? The A to Z of life, funding your Z. And literally he's like, we got to talk. And it was after that. And then it was, I don't know, I was like, you got to go to the boot camp. You got to go to the boot camp, right? And then right there,
I signed up on the spot. I was like,
all in. I know. It was awesome because when guys, because William, you've done this exercise how many times? 100 experiences and 100 things. You know what you want, and you just say yes to it, and all of a sudden the universe is supporting when we say yes, right? I mean, like you said, I also loved how you say a preview of coming attractions. Brilliantly stated, right? Our projector is just projecting out there, and we're seeing previews. So what are we going to put on our film roll? That's really that's what you're saying, because if it's programmed, it's already in there, right? It's already this. You're a genius. This is genius. And guys, I highly recommend that doing something, because me as all about adventure and exploring the inner depths of one's mind. My multiple club, I'm looking for high valuations in a business. I join places where I'm the dumbest man in the room, and when it comes to sitting next to William, I get to be the student, and I love being in that position. So
I'm honored, my friend. This is you guys are awesome. So this is coming from a great place that I'm humbled. Thank you for those kind words. I will say this, Merrill, if people want to get a hold of us, the easiest way, because we screen people coming through. So right now, we don't have a super general public program yet, not yet at least. So most people that want to come to us, they typically come through either our Facebook group, actually really just through our Facebook group, or
and our Facebook group. So you have two options: our Facebook group or our Facebook group. Pick one, whichever one, but do it now.
Yeah, I think the best way is to search. Add me, find me on Facebook, and also find TransLibrary, TRANCE library. Make sure it's the group, because our page I don't post much.
Right.
It's in the group where you have to get approved to join. In TransLibrary, where you'll see all the content, you'll see the client testimonials, cool stories. I just interviewed the general sales manager of Porsche and Audi the other day. He took their revenue from, once he took the training, 700K in profit to $3.6 million in profit in a year. That was really fun.
And I know that gentleman. He came to the boot camp with you, and he is a badass in the auto industry. And what a great testimony. That is awesome, because I met him back when he was just starting with you.
Oh, yeah. And I had another gentleman who worked with us, incredibly intelligent, super hard worker. It's just a very smart, strategic gentleman. We worked with him and got to, where his income, I'm not going to disclose it, but a few times over, and then past the 100K mark. And I think he's doing well over $200,000 a month now, from a place where, it was unperceivable, right? And I had another gentleman played in the NFL that we worked with. His online revenue was, sub 20K, and he's about to hit 200 this month. So we've taken a number of people from, sub 20K, sub 30K, or even sub, 15, 10K to six figure and or beyond. We had a girl last year, I'll say this one more, because it's public. Some of these stories we don't share because they're not public yet. But we had a girl, she even shared, 24 years old. When I met her, she was 23. She signed on to our program, started her training in March of 2020. And her side business was making about $5,000 a year. Not like great or not terrible, right? I mean, just what it was. And she's like, I would love to be able to hit 100 grand in a single year, right? Because those numbers I was talking about were monthly numbers previously. But she's talking about, I want to make 100 grand a year. And I'm like, okay, that's cool. She kept going into our master program, which is one of the do-it-yourself program, actually. So I didn't even work with her. She went through that in June. So she took some trainings between March and June. Texted me in October one day randomly. She's like, William, I did it. I'm like, what did you do? She said, I hit 100 grand, but not this year only. I did it this month. Yeah, in fact, I need to send her your way, because I think you'll be able to help her build some crazy good credit, which will allow her to
leverage, right? We got to invest to get the returns. So that's awesome. All right. Well, dude, as always, we could talk until the sun sets, but I want to thank you for joining me on this journey. First of all, you've been an amazing client, and I have loved facilitating the transformation of what we call your history, right? The profile represents your history. Your borrower behaviors represents your present, and funding represents leveraging your future. So it's been an honor to have you a part of our process, part of my tribe. And the gift that you are, that you are doing out there, you've sent so many people our way because they now need a bigger pool to swim in because of your work. Guys, he sends people regularly to me because they don't have enough future funding to handle the current aggressive results they're getting in their business. So they said, we need to leverage, we need to get out in front of this, right? And so it's been an honor. It's been wonderful, William, and thank you so much for doing so.
Likewise.
So, all right.
Thank you and your team. They have been incredible to me.
You got it, man. And our 1,000th client funded. So I'm thrilled. That it's you is just an honor to have that as my my badge of honor. So yeah, you guys, this is thank you for joining us on this. Keep binging, keep watching, go see what you could do for the TransLibrary in the groups that we dropped it in Facebook. Make sure, and it'll be in your show notes. Just check it out. If he lets you in, you're welcome. I'll take all the credit, but do something, including that 100 things that you want and 100 experiences you want to have. I'm going to do it. I challenge you to do it. This is Merrill Chandler, your host of the Get Fundable podcast and the Get Fundable universe. And let's get what we want, guys. Let's get what we want. Thank you so much, William.
Thank you, Merrill.
Thank you for listening to the Get Fundable podcast. Please leave comments because Merrill would love to read about your aha moments from this episode. And be sure to visit getfundable.com to read our blog, get important links, join our community, and much, much more, like ordering Merrill's tell-all book that is changing the world, The New F Word. And you got to tell your friends about this podcast because we want them to get fundable too.